In the small, sleepy town of Ravenwood, nestled among the dense, foreboding woods, the McCullough house stood alone. The house had long been a subject of eerie fascination for the town's residents, and its grim history only added to the chilling tales that circulated through the town. They called it the murder house. The McCullough house was a grand, imposing structure with towering spires, ivy-covered walls, and Gothic architecture that seemed to loom over the town like a sentinel of the past. Once a magnificent mansion, it had fallen into disrepair, its once vibrant gardens now overgrown with twisted thorns and brambles. But it wasn't the house's decaying exterior that made it infamous. It was the legends that clung to its very foundations, stories of unspeakable horrors that had unfolded within its walls. The McCullough house had been the site of a gruesome series of murders that had shocked the town to its core. The legend began with the McCullough family, a reclusive and enigmatic clan that had lived in the house for generations. They were known for their wealth, but they were also known for their eccentricities and their penchant for keeping to themselves. The townsfolk whispered about the family's dark rituals and arcane practices, but most dismissed these tales as mere gossip. It was a fateful night, many decades ago, that marked the beginning of the horrors that would forever haunt the McCullough house. The McCullough patriarch, Edward McCullough, was a man of cold and distant demeanor, his face obscured by a thick, black beard that concealed his emotions. He was rumored to have made a sinister pact with a malevolent entity, a pact that had bestowed him with dark powers and twisted desires. On that night, as a storm raged outside, Edward McCullough embarked on a murderous rampage that would shock the town to its core. Armed with a gleaming, obsidian blade, he systematically slaughtered his entire family, one by one, their anguished screams echoing through the house. The town's residents had been unaware of the atrocities unfolding in the McCullough house until a lone survivor, a young maid named Eliza, escaped through a hidden passage in the mansion. She was found on the town's outskirts, bloodied and delirious, her eyes haunted by the horrors she had witnessed. The authorities had arrived at the McCullough house to find a gruesome tableau of death. The bodies of the McCullough family lay strewn across the mansion, their lifeless eyes staring into eternity. The walls were adorned with cryptic symbols and macabre paintings, each one seemingly depicting a scene of unspeakable evil. Edward McCullough was nowhere to be found. It was as though he had vanished into thin air, leaving only a trail of bloodshed in his wake. The town was thrown into a frenzy, the massacre at the McCullough house becoming the stuff of nightmares. As the investigation unfolded, it became clear that Edward McCullough had delved into the darkest recesses of the occult, performing heinous rituals in a quest for power and immortality. The walls of the McCullough house were filled with his blasphemous writings, his desperate pleas for salvation from the demonic forces he had unleashed. The townsfolk began to speak of a curse that had befallen the house, a curse that drove those who entered its walls to madness and violence. The McCullough house was abandoned, its grandeur tarnished, its halls silent and desolate. Years passed, and the McCullough house remained a symbol of fear and dread. It became a place of whispered tales and warnings, a dark reminder of the town's past. The town's residents dared not venture near it, and the house became an ever-present specter in their lives. But in the present day, as the town of Ravenwood began to change and modernize, a group of curious individuals saw an opportunity. They were thrill-seekers, paranormal enthusiasts, and amateur ghost hunters who craved the adrenaline rush of the unknown. They saw the McCullough house as a tantalizing challenge, an opportunity to confront their fears and seek out the supernatural. These intrepid explorers, led by a man named Peter, planned to spend a night in the McCullough house, documenting any signs of paranormal activity and searching for clues about the dark history that shrouded it. They believed that their equipment, cameras, EVP recorders, and electromagnetic field detectors, would capture evidence of the supernatural. As they approached the McCullough house on a chilly, moonless night, the tension in the air was palpable. The darkness seemed to cling to the mansion like a living entity, and the surrounding woods rustled with unseen movements. The very atmosphere was charged with the weight of history and legend. Peter, the leader of the group, was a skeptic who had long dismissed tales of curses and hauntings. He saw this expedition as a chance to debunk the myths surrounding the McCullough house and prove that there was a rational explanation for the horrors of its past. The group entered the mansion, their flashlights piercing the shadows and revealing the decaying grandeur of the once magnificent structure. They set up their equipment in the main hall, their excitement growing as they prepared to confront the unknown. As the night wore on, the McCullough house seemed to come alive with whispered voices, ghostly apparitions, and unexplained phenomena. The investigators' cameras captured strange orbs of light, their EVP recorders picked up faint, eerie voices, and their electromagnetic field detectors registered inexplicable readings. Even Peter, the staunch skeptic, felt a growing unease as the night progressed. He dismissed the evidence as mere anomalies, the product of an old house's creaking timbers and his team's overactive imaginations. But as the clock struck midnight, the atmosphere in the McCullough house shifted. A bone-chilling gust of wind swept through the hall, extinguishing their candles and plunging them into darkness. The air grew heavy, and the investigators felt an oppressive presence closing in on them. Their cameras and equipment malfunctioned, and their EVP recorders emitted a cacophony of frantic voices, speaking in a language that was beyond human comprehension. The investigators huddled together, their fear palpable, as a series of apparitions materialized before them. Edward McCullough, the long-vanished patriarch, stood at the forefront, his beard matted with blood, his eyes burning with malevolence. He was accompanied by the spectral forms of his family, their faces twisted in agony, their hands reaching out as if to drag the living into the depths of their torment. The investigators' screams echoed through the mansion as they fled in terror, their equipment abandoned in their panicked retreat. They had sought to confront the unknown, but the unknown had confronted them in a way they could never have imagined. The McCullough house had exacted its vengeance, and the legend of its curse had been reaffirmed. The town of Ravenwood would forever be haunted by the horrors that unfolded within its walls, a chilling reminder of the darkness that could lurk within even the most beautiful facade. As for the McCullough house, it remained a place of dread, its legends now entwined with the screams of those who had dared to venture into its depths. The darkness that had enveloped it for generations showed no signs of dissipating, and the mansion's curse endured, waiting to claim its next victims. The town of Ravenwood, with its quaint streets and quiet nights, had a secret that would never be forgotten, a secret that dwelled within the walls of the McCullough house, a secret that would continue to haunt the town for generations to come.